we just had the referendum in the UK. Well, there's a referendum coming in this country as well in November. A referendum about how we're seeing the future for the nation. And it's an important referendum. Two candidates, Clinton and Trump. I'm supporting Clinton. I think the majority of the voters will too, because they see our country not necessarily needing to close the door on itself or on the future. And I think that's going to be the struggle. For Bernie, and people are saying, well, you're taking too long to get to the point where you endorse Hillary. Well, I think Bernie's earned the opportunity, the time, and to take as long as he needs. But on a general level, how Bernie brings in the people that support him, particularly the young, and the time it takes to bring them in, and the time it takes the party to react to his tenets and put it in the platform, is valuable time, because this is an integrative process, and it behooves the Democratic Party to be open about it, to integrate that in order to be sure that we have a unified front against Trump.
Benghazi report came out yesterday. A lot of people saying no smoking gun here. Clinton campaign is saying there is nothing new here. This is, I think, the 8th Benghazi inquiry.
$7 million
$7 million spent on it, spent longer than looking at the Kennedy assassination and anything else. Is this a dud, or does this reveal something new here?
I think it's much to do about nothing. I really do. I think that the $7 million spent on this, the got you moment that should have been on Hillary never happened. In terms of you're responsible, you knew about it, should have done something. All of that, with all the work that was done, the $7 million, the investigation, at the end of the day, you end with saying the State Department the administration should have done more, period. I don't think that's an indictment on anybody. And I think if people look at that, and they will, because this was going to be the issue that sank Hillary Clinton, that there is just there's much to do about nothing, and any impact is minimal. And anybody that's convinced that she was part of some conspiracy in Benghazi, this doesn't change their mind or reaffirm it.
The Supreme Court and its ruling on immigration, I want to take that up a little bit. Is it almost a victory for people who support DACA? And the reason I say that is, if Antonin Scalia were alive today, very likely the Texas judge and his injunction would have been upheld. You would have had one more conservative vote on there, and it would have been a 5-4 in favor of upholding that injunction. As it stands now, you can revisit it when there's a new Supreme Court nominee. Is it a victory for you?
I wouldn't call it a victory, because you're still going to have 4 million people who have citizen children and mixed families in this country that are still exposed to the same detention, deportation policy that we have now, which continues to build anxiety and, more importantly, continues to split families in this country. So no, in that sense, it's not a victory. The silver lining that you very adequately pointed out, it's a tie. No winner.
Is it the best possible outcome, I think, for people who support it?
I would 5-3 the other way would have been nice, but it didn't happen. 4-4, silver lining meaning, and again, here let's add additional significance to this election that's coming up. The next president nominee. The next nominee, presumptively, is going to break that tie in favor of DAPA and DACA. And so who that president is, who that nominee is in the next year, even adds more significance to the election in November.
It's no secret that Hispanics are going to play a bigger role in this election than they ever have. In Arizona alone, I think we're up to about 1 million eligible Hispanic voters. But the expectation is, even from people who paint a pretty optimistic picture, is only about half of them will actually vote in the general election. And people have talked about this for years. You've got a lot of people in this state who are Hispanic voters, perfectly eligible to vote, and they don't show up at the polls. How do you expect people to exercise their political power if they don't have the wherewithal to at least show up?
Yeah, it's been a personal, political, community frustration on the participation rate.
But why is that happening?
I think anybody that claims to have the silver bullet to either answer that question or to solve the problem is not telling the truth. It's been a difficult issue, and it's been a difficult issue because I think Latinos feel that the system in itself is not doing enough, and that it doesn't matter who you elect, nothing changes. And so you have that malaise involved in it. But I really think, and I'm convinced, from my discussions with just normal voters and voters that don't participate as much as they should, that this election has a different tone to it. That the Latino community is seeing their participation at the voting poll as a defense of their community, as a defense of themselves, as a defense of their families in the future, and that the factor of Trump in this race raises those stakes about their future and about the need to defend it. And so I think right now I think the effort has to be on the part of Democrats to register voters, and I think turnout is going to take care of itself, because if the motivation wasn't there in the past, I would suggest the motivation is there now. We just talked about a Supreme Court nominee that would solve a domestic issue of great proportions. We're talking about education. We're talking about future investment, and I think the community always been an intelligent voting bloc. I think now is a motivated voting bloc that sees this as a line of defense for their community, and that they got to use this power.
It would be hard to imagine an issue that would affect people more directly than DACA, because when you look at a lot of Hispanic families, you have families where some are dreamers, some are brought here, some are second, third generation, born here, but they have relatives who are dreamers or whatever. I mean, if this issue doesn't affect them directly, if they don't see the impact on their lives, what else is there?
Yeah, that's why I said it's a defense. And because if you look, let's just take the issue of immigration, and that's economic issues and job issues and minimum wage issues that are important to the community. And let's just take the issue of immigration. To some, the issue of immigration reform, DACA, DAPA, is personal, day-to-day life issue for those people that would qualify under those programs, for those individual immigrants that would qualify. For second, first generation like myself, third, fourth, it's a civil rights issue. It covers the community as a whole, because to speak to that group is to speak to a legacy and to a generation and to a history. So you now combine both those forces, and I think that it can be very, very potent.